like this, so I don't know how to prepare. But like still, I think it would be better for me to just share my how like my perception on AI was initially, and how it changed it, and how I use like AI in during the class and like class material. So I hope you like maybe you can just agree with my ideas, or like maybe you just like if you have any opinion, if you want to share your experience, just like feel free to like talk to me and share ideas with me. Okay. So when I first like heard about AI, so my basic experience with AI was the little chat, like when I was young, like high school or like even like university, now they start doing those like little AI chat thing. So they download those ad and like just randomly like have a like little chat with this bot thing. And so when just like AI issue got attention, I thought about that. Okay. Like they just like when I ask questions, they just had random answers. Like, when I ask like, how are you? They just like, I'm fine, thank you, those kind of answer, right? So I didn't know like how the AI technology has been developed with those time period. Okay. Um, so I was like, like no one can replace that. Like people like it would be stupid to use those like AI stuff. But like somehow I had a conversation with my students and conversation with my colleagues, and they talked about like the chat GPT. And like now media is like always talk about like the importance of chat GPTs or AI. So I decided to use that chat GPT for like asking some weird question like what is love, or like those some like theoretical like things like to ask, and the answer was pretty good. Like surprisingly, they talks about like love is this, and like oh like this is feeling of that is hard to define. So it was really interesting, and after I saw that I realized like so two things comes up in my mind. First, okay, like now how I can like manage my students, like they're going to like ask those questions and they were going to use it when they write an essay. And second one is like, okay, what's my job? Like, are they going to replace me? And like, what if like in the future, like they're going to eventually replace us, and like all the students use just AI to learn stuff? So I was really afraid. So the first thing I did was just like try to manage all the students. Like, okay, like now you cannot use AI. So if I detect that you use AI, then I'm going to give you F because it's cheating. Like, you don't just like use your thoughts. Okay, so that was my initial reaction. But time goes by, I realized actually a lot of students use those AI to write an essay. And not only that, they just like got a lot of help from AI tools. So I just realized we just cannot avoid those AI, and cannot completely control like students using AI actually. So well, even though there are a lot of like technology that try to detect like students use AI for their writing essay, but actually it is hard to detect because like they copy and paste, and somehow they use like edit their own, or they just like move it to another like platform and copy and paste again. Then like those the Turnitin, for example, they cannot detect those whether students actually whether they use it or not. So I just realized, okay, it just can't we cannot avoid it. Like anyway, students will use it, and we need to deal with that. So that's why like that's changed my perception now. Like, okay, rather than just like control them completely, why don't we just like use those AI technologies to help student and like help to develop my classes. So that's why after that, I try to use those AI more often for my study and for my like class design. So there's two things that I use for. So first one, I try to use the AI to support my content. So the most common thing that the AI technology I use is Bling that offered by I think that's offered by Internet Explorer or Google, I think. I'm not, like Microsoft maybe. So I don't know, I'm not sure exactly, but I use Bling image and also ChatGPT. I know like a lot of people would say, okay, ChatGPT just like that's just cheating, but still, actually, it is helpful, really helpful to build your class and use it for your classroom too. So I am also going to share like how I use like ChatGPT for my class and also use like Bling image. So here I'm going to share the screen. Um, so this is how I use this is how I use like ChatGPT for building my syllabus actually. So so before like when I start teaching it, I don't have to teach like multiple classes, but like few classes and then have 4 classes. But like there's a moment that I have to add one more uh, class that I didn't really use to teach. So instead of, and because of that, I couldn't get much help from like previous lectures, like because I'm the one who starts doing this. So like I need to build a syllabus like from the beginning, okay? And as you may know, this is my first job after I graduated PhD. So like when I was in PhD, like a lot of like professors or mentors like tried to help me, but now I like start my new job, and yes, like the colleagues from my department also help me, but still like I feel like I need to do all of those by myself because like somehow now I get a job, like I need to like work as a professional. So I was not sure like how to start like building those syllabus. So and also like offering guideline for students is really important because like somehow no matter how I explained it multiple times, students always ask me whether this is correct or not. So like so building a syllabus and building a guideline for students is really important for me and for students to complete those course successfully. So here instead of just like copy and paste of the previous guideline that I wrote, and I just like asked this question, like, so like write assignment guideline for students to complete the assignment, write assignments guideline for students to complete the assignment. I explain like what they need to do to complete this assignment. And like ChatGPT gives this like whole like a new paper of those guidelines. So this is like an initial version of assignment guideline. So based on this, now I have those like structure, like how to build those like guideline and syllabus. So, and also based on that, I can create my own. I'm gonna share this one again. So this is like a complete version of uh, the the guideline that I made uh, after I like get an answer from ChatGPT. So not only just copy and paste, now using those answer from the ChatGPT, I can build this like the guideline for the students. So the bullet points, like the separate points and the rubric. And actually like ChatGPT also offered like rubric of those guideline too. Um, so as you can see, like if you use ChatGPTs or AI, like it actually helps to help for you to build those climate tolerant contents easily. Like you don't have to spend a lot of time, and it also like work as an assistant. That is an example of ChatGPT, and another example that I use will be Bling. So this one is good for you to use, like find a good image. So for me, like my classes, like I teach as sorry, I don't know how to read his name, but like as he introduced me, like I teach public speaking, interpersonal comm, intercultural comm. So those actually need to explain those concepts and theory using like many like analogy or like anecdote or example. So for that, like some of the example can be really personal. And in that case, it's really hard to find those image from the Google. And like even though you can find it, you have to like type of multiple like keywords, then you have to maybe you need to get permission from the copyrights. But if you use like this type of AI, you don't have to get through all of those process. Just simply say, so for here, I use like typical male students in the University of Alabama. So they just like give me this image. And like since this was created by like AI, so it doesn't have any like copyrights, or it kind of looks real too. So you can find a really like kind of accurate image that from like what you expected. So here there's another example. So typical Korean woman, and also well, this one's kind of wrong because I asked them to create the students that Texas A&M University, but they didn't include Loverly, so I guess they're pretty bad. But so if you just say use a typical male student in Texas A&M University, like you can see those typical image of Texas A&M students. So I use this image, and not only this, I use this image to explain stereotype, so how the stereotype works. Because like explain how AI works, because like they collect all the image on the internet and create the image, right? So not only I can use this image just like not considering those copyright, but also you can use it as like itself as a class material too. Yeah, so these are the basic things that I use to create my and support my class and class material. But also like I also use this example for the students too. So as I told you, it is actually it's hard to avoid that students use those like AI technology, right? And they're hard to detect. So for us as an educator, I think it is better for us to just like give them a guideline on how to use that. So actually what I did is just like show them the ChatGPT screen and told them how to use that. So especially for public speaking class, like they need to do a lot of writings. So and they need to choose their own topic. And most of the time they just feel lost whenever they need to choose a topic. So for that, so especially for example, informative speech and persuasive speech. For informative speech in my class, they have to choose the topic they think that they're professional. So still, like they don't know like what kind of topic they need to choose. Then I ask them to just use a chat GPTs. Okay, like maybe just like throw some keywords and idea to like start having the construction or structure to develop their idea and then use it. And also whenever they need to support need an idea to support their idea, I let them just type several keyword to ask question, and they soon know like if they don't put right keyword or like a question to AI like ChatGPT, they cannot get a right answer actually. So even though like if they want to use ChatGPT effectively, they need to understand the concept. They need to understand the topic. So actually like in that case, like ChatGPT can be really helpful to develop like students' idea actually, not actually ruin their creativity or like limit their like imagination actually. So not just like regulate them and like reinforce them like not to use them, just like showing them how to use them correctly would be a better way to use ChatGPT and how we live with ChatGPT as an educator, I think. And I got like good and like good feedback from students too, like and also like show them, especially I recently I also had a conversation with other colleagues about using ChatGPT, and like he asked like, ChatGPT like, okay, so now I'm going to like write an essay about like sports communication, and like tell me how I argue this like using peer-reviewed article. But ChatGPT actually created those created those peer-reviewed article, not from the internet. So using this example to like during the classroom and tell them like, okay, not only you need to ask the right question, also you need to check whether those answer from ChatGPT is correct or not. Okay, so they can just like practice those things, not just like use ChatGPT to help them develop their idea, and also let them to just check the background check. So this become a habit for them to use those AI and use those like internet source to use for their assignment and for their study. But some of them just don't know. Some of them just like do copy and paste, like to use those answer for their class. So for me, I just like show them how they need to use AI and how they get the better answer from the ChatGPT. So but at the same time, like I also agree that like if I ask them to write a complicated essay, like not only just okay, create a like speech about I don't know, koala, they probably ChatGPT will give like several sources, right? But like if I want them to think more complicated, then I give them more direction. Like, okay, like here you need to give like me more of personal experience. And then like, oh, you need to add like this theory to explain it. Okay. So in that case, like ChatGPT also can offer those like example, but like since students need to make it more personal, they need to think twice, like if they want to use those answer from ChatGPT. So yes, so here that's how I use ChatGPT and other like AI tools. So I do think like now at this point we just cannot avoid AI. Like we just can't not like just ignore it. Okay, like they're just like it's just a tool and I cannot replace it. But if you use like ChatGPT or other AI correctly, it will be actually helpful for us to build the syllabus and build the class material and also help the student to develop their idea. So I hope that like people just you guys are just not afraid of using ChatGPT because it's actually really fun. Yes. So I just want to like hear like your experience of using ChatGPT or like how your perception like has been changed or how you stick with like those your perception of the AI now. Yes, thank you.